So I put a video out a little while ago on modes, and I wanted to basically just explain to you what modes are. And I explained it to you the way it's usually explained. It's a major scale. In this case, I have an A major scale. And it's if you started on a different note instead of starting it on the first note of the scale. By the way, when you count notes of a scale, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That could be called 8 or it could be called 1 because that's where everything starts again. And so on. And so on and so on and so on. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you start on the second note, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is the same as 1, and end on the 2 again, that's Dorian mode, and so on. So those are the modes. Starting on from the first step to the first step is a major scale or Ionian mode. The second scale step to the second scale step up an octave, Dorian. Third to third, Phrygian. Fourth to fourth, Lydian. Fifth to fifth, Mixolydian. Sixth to sixth, Aeolian or pure minor. 7 to 7, Locrian, and then 8 back to 8, you're back at a major scale or Ionian mode. But when you explain it that way, they all sound the same. It doesn't sound any different than this A. I don't hear the modes. It's confusing. And somebody asked me, well, if it's the second scale step, is that still in the key of A? Is that A Dorian? No, that's B Dorian because the root is now B. In this E, Phrygian, it's E Phrygian. It has nothing to do with A. But the problem is we're playing those modes all in the same relative tonality as A major. And you can't hear the difference. It's impossible to hear the difference. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to play the modes, but we're going to do them starting on the same note. So instead of going from the first scale step to the last scale step, in the major chord, and then going from second to second, no, we're going to stay on that first step, but we're going to rearrange the notes so they're in Dorian mode. Okay, so bear with me. The scale position I'm going to use is this. We're going to start on an A, and why am I starting on A? Because it's easy to see right here. You can start it on any note. So A, B, and C. I'm going to use 3 notes, okay? Each one 2 frets away. We're going to do the same thing on the next string for the D, E, F sharp. Okay, kind of symmetrical. Both strings have the same fingering. Now we're going to go. There's our G sharp and A. I was thinking about this in G before, so I may make a mistake referencing the key of G every once in a while. You can hit me up in the comments for that. So A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. A, B, C sharp, G. There it goes. A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. Now if you keep extending it, we have the same fingering. D string. Same thing on the G string. Now, if I'm playing solos and stuff, I will move it up to, and then I got the same thing on the next string. So the thing I like about this scale, I need to change positions. So it's the same 2 fingerings on these strings, same 2 fingerings here, same 2 fingerings here. Okay, so that's kind of the scale that I'm going to work with here, but I'm going to make one minor difference. And instead of changing position, I'm going to go these 2 notes, F sharp, G sharp, but instead of going up to this A, I'm going to play it there. Just so I can show you easier what's going on. So there's our major scale, 2 octaves. So, okay. So here's the thing. That's Ionian mode. What about Dorian mode? Well, let's start on the same note, but turn it into Dorian mode. So Dorian mode, if you if you went back to the original example and you figured out, well, what is the formula for Dorian mode? Where are the whole steps and where are the half steps? You would find you'd have this. So let's hear that major and Dorian. Here's major. Here's Dorian. That's the sound of Dorian right there. It's a minor sound with a major sixth. Okay, let's hear Lydian. Lydian is from the fourth scale step to the fourth scale step. Okay, if you did it the old way we were thinking about it. But if you figured out what the steps were, you would come up with this. Starting on an A Lydian is going to sound like this. Well, it sounds like a major scale so far. Ooh, what's that? Okay, so now you can start hearing the different flavors of these modes. Here's major. Here's Lydian. I mean, come on, man. Don't you just done something inside you go, oh, how cool is that? You know, isn't that cool? How about pure minor? That's the sound of pure minor. That's... So you start to hear the different sounds and the different flavors if you start on the same note. That's where you start hearing the differences of the modes. So what do? Go through and learn the modes. That's not what I did. That's not what I did. That's not what I did at all. So here's what I did here. So this is my major scale. I know that. Here's this Phrygian. That would be the third scale step mode. This is A Phrygian. So that's got that Spanish feel. That mode. Locrian, that one's just purely bizarre. One of the problems with Locrian mode is each one of these modes has its own chords. Okay, it has its own root chord, has its own four chord, because everything changes. Okay, so but Locrian is the only one whose chord is not major or not minor. The first chord, it's diminished. So, you know, Locrian mode is really bizarre. Isn't that crazy? So it's still useful. It's still useful, but it's not really anything that would a composer would say, I'm going to write a song in Locrian mode. Well, maybe. I would. Maybe. But so other modes are like, major modes, Happy Birthday to You. That's major mode. Almost every song you hear, any Taylor Swift song, major mode. When you go into minor keys, you have the choice of being either pure minor or Dorian. Those are both minor sounds. And how do you tell the difference? Well, when you hear this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, when you hear that, something like that. Dorian mode is used more in jazz and in 2/5s, where so there's Dorian. I'm going to go now to pure minor. And you're going to hear them used interchangeably. It depends on the chords that are going on. So you could have, oh, how about Dorian. Now that's a pure minor sound. So it changed from Dorian mode to a pure minor sound with this chord. So Dorian. And that's the harmony note in there, which is a pure minor. So you're going to hear these things all the time. So what you really want to accomplish is you're listening to a piece of music and you hear, wow, that sounds like I think I know what that is. That sounds like a natural minor kind of thing. But then you hear this. We're in Phrygian mode. Why? That flat 2, that sound there. So you don't have to know exactly everything about it, but you start to hear what these flavors are, what these tonalities are. So here's a nice C major 7. Wow, what's that? Lydian. That's Lydian mode. Because it's a sharp 4. That's the flavor of Lydian mode. How about Mixolydian? Mixolydian is a major sound, but a flat 7th scale step. And that's kind of a bluesier sound. That's kind of a Mixolydian thing. And Locrian, as I said before, you're not going to find that too much. Cool sound, though. Cool sound. And then you have all sorts of modes that are kind of made up. I haven't played a whole tone scale in so long. Yeah, C sharp. That's whole steps all the way up to scale and all the way back down. And it used to be on TV shows, when I was a kid, whenever they'd have like a dream sequence, when all of a sudden somebody's going to go into a dream, you'd hear these thirds. Oh, I was dreaming, stuff like that, So take a listen now. This is not enough for you to really understand it, but it's enough for you to start saying, okay, this is something I got to think about, because you got to sit down with the guitar and you got to say, okay, where do I play these things? So I'll show you a couple of tricks that I've figured out. Okay, so if you have this scale that we talked about, I don't use this all that much. I use it if I want to do some kind of a fast lick that's going, something that's going up and down and slurring. Just some stupid noodling like that. I'll use that. But I mean, you can use anything you want. But here's the thing. So here's your root. We're going to stay on A. You can do an A major scale any way you're used to. Dorian mode, here's what I do for Dorian. Watch this. Now, before when we did modes, here's the cool thing. I'm going to pause for a minute and turn my keyboard camera on. This should pull it all together. Okay, so I have the keyboard camera back on, and what I was talking about before with modes. So very quickly, your modes are the same scale but played from the second step to the second step. But again, when you listen to it that way, it's hard to hear. It's easier to hear a mode if you always start on the same note. So this is what I'm trying to show you guys on guitar. Okay, so instead of going from one scale step to one scale step, we're going to move the fingering position down or up to change it. So watch. Here's that major scale that we talked about. Right? There it is. If we take this scale and move it down a whole step, well, you have a G major scale. But if you play it starting from the A, that position is Dorian mode. Oh, mind blown? I hope so. So it's a G major scale, but we're starting it on the second fret, but we're now playing A Dorian. So here's A major with this, but now we're moving this whole scale visually down 2 frets, but we're starting on the A. We're not using this G. And we're going from the second step, just like we did before, but we're still in the key of A. Oh, man. There's your Dorian mode. And you're going to find different workarounds where you can do, like, come into it from a blues scale. And then that extended part I showed you before. And look what's right under that. A blues scale. So here you go, being able to do a blues thing. It's hard to play looking at the thing. So anyway, so what we did was take this, move it down to here, but go second to second, but we're still in the key of A. How cool is that? Okay, now that's our Dorian mode. If we want to go to the next mode, which is going to be Phrygian, we do something really cool. You guys remember a C scale down here? You guys... So yeah, my dog's barking at something down there. So now the next thing we're talking about is this C scale. Remember this good old C scale that you learned somewhere as your first major scale? Extended down, so it's the notes that of the C chord. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. C, D, E, F, G. And if you went down, C, B, A, G, F, E. Okay, so you know that shape. If we take that same shape and we move it up to here, we have basically, here's your C, right? And then the extended notes like that, okay? So you know that, right? You got that? I don't have time to put all the tabs up there. I guess I could if I did this for a living, but I don't. If you're really having problems with that, let me know. It's a C scale, but now it just happens to be on an F chord with the C shape, right? And you're using your finger in place of the bar. Okay? Well, guess what? If you play that starting from this note, the same notes, doesn't sound like a major scale anymore, does it? Phrygian mode. So here we are starting on A, Phrygian. So let's review. A major, that scale that I showed you, or wherever you want to hit that A. Take that same shape, move it down, start it on the second scale step, and guess what? It's A Dorian. So it's a great way to listen to the difference, to be able to go, you know, wow, I can hear the different, and now this C-shaped thing from down here is Phrygian mode. Well, take the same thing now, this C-shaped scale, move it down 1 fret, but start it on A. Okay, so he's starting it now. Oh, it's Lydian. I'm not taking it all the way down to that note of that C-shaped scale. Guess what? Take it down 2 more steps, and it's Mixolydian. There's your flat 7. And now the scale starts on your pinky, though, even though it's that C-shaped scale there. So there you go with your Mixolydian. Pure minor. So pure minor, where would be the easiest way? You could do, let's see, we're down to here. If we went down to here, and I wouldn't do it this way. Okay, so it's the same thing as the C scale now, because remember, we did our Phrygian up here. We moved it down a half step, 1 fret, but started on an A. Lydian, we moved it down now a whole step, and it's a Mixolydian, but it still starts on A. And if you moved it down here and just used this A, it's Aeolian or pure minor. Of course, you could play it up here too. I'll leave that up to you for homework to figure out, you know, how to move it to different places. Locrian is the trickiest one for me. Locrian is tricky. So if you wanted a Locrian, you would have to play a B flat scale from 7 to 7. You with me on this? So if you want this to be a Locrian, it's this. But it's from A to A. You're playing a B flat scale. I'm going to play the same scale, but I'm going to, instead of starting from A, I'll start on B flat. There's your Locrian from 7 to 7. So it's really interesting. If you start your modes on the same note, you will hear the difference. And it's a cool little mind puzzle that will make you crazy because you realize, wow, so when I was doing this before, going, okay, C, there's C major, and if I go D to D, That's Dorian, but it doesn't, I'm not locking in on the sound. Think of it this way. Dorian is a second scale step in a major key. So if you wanted to turn the C scale into Dorian mode, here's what we did on the guitar. We played a B flat scale from C to C. Right, there's your B flat scale. If we want to play Phrygian, we'd have to play an A flat scale for the third scale step. If we wanted to turn the C scale into Lydian, we would then have to think of it as a G scale from C to C. Isn't that cool? But if we played it. So if you want to think of this now as pure minor, you're playing this this same scale. We're G. We're going to go down to, well, pure minor is easy enough. What key is that? A flat. But if we did it here, isn't that cool? That wasn't the pure minor though, but the pure, yes it was. Now my head's getting all turned around. Anyway, and then Locrian mode would be basically a C sharp scale against a C. Anyway, so that's kind of what I did on the guitar. I thought about, if you want to keep the same root note, you have to think of moving your scales position so that you're actually starting it on the second of some scale and the third of some scale, and that's a good way for you to kind of quickly think about modes. So I can also think about them in shapes. So if I'm playing a chord here, and it's an A, the root's an A, and I want a Lydian sound, I know it's this what I refer to as the C-shaped thing. Or if I want Mixolydian, so you start to be able to just know where you want these colors. So I'm not really thinking about, what scale should I be playing here? What scale should I be playing there? I'm thinking about what colors, what colors might I want? And then you get into stuff like, you get it when you start getting into diminished stuff and things like that, it starts going crazy. Let's see who's blown up my phone. Allie. I'll have to give her a call back. So anyway, hopefully this is helpful to you. I find this fascinating. So, just quite quickly, let's say I'm in the key of G. And I want to play some kind of a Lydian thing on there. Well, I learned those shapes, so I know if I want to play a pure minor, I want to play Dorian. I want to play Locrian. And then there's all sorts of scales that you add to and make. I don't even remember what the word is. Like an artificial mode. You know, you can have. So you have this. Here's a good example. You have a Phrygian, and the one chord is really a minor chord. And what you'll find a lot of times is that it'll be modified to make it major, and that changes the mode. So there could be a lot of different things that you can do with modes, and once you start getting into diminished chords and stuff like that, there's all sorts of crazy cool licks that you do, like so what did we have there? We had a those are like an altered scale. Back to so you start being able to do lots of cool things and get lots of cool flavors. Anyway, hopefully that helps a little bit. Like I said, what I really wanted you to get away from this, to get out of this, is not necessarily to be able to completely absorb everything I did, but to see that modes, the most important thing about modes is being able to isolate what sounds make them, what makes them tick, what makes them, sound, to what makes these modes tick. So anyway, hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, just throw them in the comments. I'll be happy to address any of the comments that you have. So keep on practicing. See you in a little bit.